I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents. Serving the church and leaving a legacy.
To hopefully encourage and inspire others to deepen our relationship in Jesus Christ and in His resurrection.
They're an institution in the area, and they're trying to build a new place to call home.
This year we're focusing on getting some funding to help renovate the new building.
And locals get another opportunity to explore a different way of life.
Maybe this isn't for me, but maybe something else is. And that's what I'm trying to find out.
Well, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. Francesca Maxime has the night off. Reports from Rome this week indicate that Pope Benedict may issue an apology for clergy sex abuse in June to cap the year for priests. It would be an emotional conclusion to what has been an extraordinary year for the church, one that's focused renewed attention on the priesthood, not all of it positive. But a gathering earlier this week sought to accentuate the positive. St. Thomas More Church in Manhattan hosted a discussion with 3 local priests who spoke about their lives, their legacy, and the laity.
This is part of a series we've been doing called More Hot Topics, and this being the Year of the Priest, this is part of our contribution to address the issues for better understanding between the laity and the priest.
It's very interesting as a priest coming to a forum like this, because I think whereas priests think about these questions a lot, and perhaps priests among themselves will discuss these questions as far as how our understanding of the priesthood affects our own lives, our work in the parish. Perhaps we don't address these questions much with lay people.
How is Jesus Christ proclaimed out in the culture? I mean, what does the gospel have to say to the artist, to the politician, to the teacher, to the policeman, to the judge, to every sphere, in the temporal order.
The Catholicism has this huge role in the popular mind because of our presence, our numbers, and our ability to communicate. We have wonderful ceremonies which captivate people, Catholic music, art. All of these things do make an impression. Now the question is this the impression that Disney World makes on people, which is that's a fantastic creation, but it's not something that I have any vital connection with. I go to it when I want to. A lot of the work we do will not cause people to return to the practice of the faith or to become enthusiastic Catholics. It does happen, and those are wonderful moments, but accomplishments are we did what we were supposed to do, and we did it with love, and hopefully did it with fidelity to the church.
When family life and marriage is strong, so too is priesthood and religious life strong. So it kind of goes hand in hand with each other. I just preached at my dad's funeral days ago, and that ability to be able to take the faith that has been given to me by my mom and dad, that faith that I've been raised in, to hopefully encourage and inspire others to deepen our relationship in Jesus Christ and in His resurrection.
How do I communicate that faith? How do I defend it? I defend it by being Catholic. And what does that mean? Universal, open, willing, loving in Christ.
When I came back to the church, it happened to be at St. Agnes Church in Midtown. It was it's a commuter parish. And every priest I met was just one more wonderful experience. And these guys were they were exactly like the ones that I experienced. It was absolutely fantastic. And I think with more priests like that, we'll do okay.
Well, we have much more about the Year for Priests over on our website. Just go to currentsny.net. Stay tuned. There's more Currents coming up straight ahead. When we return, we'll have the day's headlines, including an amended version of the Markey Bill gets another push in New York State. Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up in just a bit, a local parish promotes vocations during this Year for Priests. But first, let's turn to the day's headlines. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops has added its voice to the increasing criticism of Arizona's strict new immigration law. The bishops said in a statement that the law is draconian and could lead to the wrongful questioning and arrest of U.S. citizens. The newly signed legislation makes it an Arizona state crime to be in the U.S. without documentation, and it requires police to ask for immigration papers from anyone they have a reasonable suspicion of being in the country illegally. New York Archbishop Timothy Dolan also spoke out against the law, calling it mean-spirited, counterproductive, and harmful. Several local governments have implemented or are considering economic boycotts of Arizona in the wake of the bill's passage. Well, a bill that would temporarily lift the statute of limitations for sexual abuse victims in New York State has met with opposition from school officials and county leaders. The Markey bill, sponsored by Queens Assemblywoman Margaret Markey, was initially written to allow sexual abuse victims to sue their abusers up to 40 years after they turned 18, but only if that abuse occurred in private institutions such as the Catholic Church. The measure has since been amended to include other public institutions. Now, the New York State School Boards Association and the State Association of Counties say they oppose the bill. The head of the Vatican office that handles sexual abuse cases says media bias has led to negative coverage of the church during the abuse scandal. Cardinal William Leveda, the prefect for the Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, told PBS in an interview that media coverage has been driven by information from attorneys who are looking to sue the Pope. Leveda also said the U.S. Church has taken very concrete action to protect children. Well, amid the sexual abuse crisis, you may be wondering exactly how the church is making sure future priests are prepared for a life of celibacy. As we hear now from Rome Reports, seminarians at one college are thoroughly screened about their sexuality.
Like any other college acceptance process, student priests applying to the North American College in Rome must fill out application forms, submit letters of recommendations, and put their best foot forward in an interview. But there's one more crucial step, a psychological evaluation that also examines their sexual maturity.
Some psychologists would administer particular tests that look at any kind of sexual addiction, especially to pornography. And they would basically evaluate whether the person has a good understanding of their own sexuality.
The evaluation also asks if the person was abused as a child and looks at homosexual tendencies. It's this test that Father David Sanji, the Director of Counseling Services and a licensed psychologist, says will help prevent sex abuse in the church. Father Sanji says if there's anything that brings serious doubts, the seminarian is sent home, and some have. But the test is only the beginning. The seminarians also take part in regular one-on-one sessions with spiritual directors and take a class on celibacy, which Father Sanji says helps develop good, solid priests.
So we're taught that celibacy is for the kingdom of God. Celibacy is a testimony to the resurrection of Christ, that we love all people, not just one person, but we love all people. We love the church as our spouse.
Father Sanji is currently looking for ways to update the screening process, but adds no test is 100% accurate.
Psychological testing will not screen out who is going to abuse a child or not. So it would be important to know that I can't in a psychological test say that this person will do this or that. I can't predict that exactly. But I can say that this kind of a person seems to be one who's really too self-centered to be entering a life of ministry.
And for Father Sanji, that's a red flag that would get an applicant turned away.
Well, speaking of priests, it turns out a significant number of them come from 2 continents where the number of Catholics is rapidly growing. The Vatican released its annual statistical report Tuesday, and it shows about 1 out of every 5 priests comes from either Asia or Africa. Overall, the number of Catholics in Africa rose by 33% between 2000 and 2008. For the same time period, the number of Catholics in Asia grew by nearly 16%. The report says there are nearly 1.2 billion Catholics worldwide. Well, scientists in Turkey believe they may have found Noah's Ark. A team of explorers says they discovered a wooden structure covered with ice at the top of Mount Ararat. One archaeologist says the structure contained wood fragments from over 4,800 years ago. Many people believe Mount Ararat to be the site where Noah's Ark ran aground after a great flood thousands of years ago. But a researcher says this is the first serious search of the mountain. Closer to home now, members of a Brooklyn synagogue are reeling today after discovering that their house of worship was robbed. Thieves apparently broke into the synagogue on 53rd Street in Borough Park and made off with 5 Torahs and their silver crowns. Reports say the items could be worth as much as $250,000. Well, a new survey shows a majority of Americans believe Jesus speaks to them in some form. The poll by the Barna Group shows 52% of Americans say Jesus speaks to them by influencing or connecting to their mind. 2 out of 5 respondents said Jesus speaks to them through Scripture, and less than 1/5 of the population believes that God communicates with them through an audible voice or whisper. And finally, the Supreme Court ruled today that a cross erected as a memorial in the Mojave Desert does not violate the separation of church and state. The cross has been covered with plywood for years in accordance with court rulings. In a 5-4 vote today, the justices concluded that Congress acted properly when it tried to transfer the land around the cross to veterans groups. That land is now part of the Mojave National Preserve. The Latin cross was first erected in 1934 by a local Veterans of Foreign Wars group in honor of the dead. The High Court's ruling sends the case now back to the lower federal courts to resolve. Stay tuned, there's much more Currents coming up ahead. Just ahead, they've helped many in our area, and now they're looking to help their own.
These are people who have a joyful spirit and a generous heart, and I think those are the criteria.
Welcome back. Well, last year, a familiar landmark in Brooklyn, the Convent of Mercy, was forced to close after it was found to be structurally unsafe. Dozens of residents, retired and elderly Sisters of Mercy, had to relocate to other convents around the area. Now the order is planning to renovate a large facility in Queens to house about 30 sisters, and it's hosting a fundraiser next month to help make that happen. To find out more about this, I sat down recently to talk with 2 of the people involved in this project, Sister Camille D'Arienzo and Monsignor David Casado. Well, Sister Camille, Monsignor, thank you very much both for being here on Currents. We appreciate your time.
And we're glad to be here. Thank you.
Great pleasure.
Thank you, no problem. We're very glad to have you back, Sister Camille. Now, I know that this time around you come to talk about an evening of mercy, something that is very important, I understand, and was precipitated by something that's been a bit of a hardship for a lot of sisters. Tell me about the evening, why it's so important, why it's being done.
Well, the current Evening of Mercy will focus on something that reflects some difficulty. But the tradition of the Evening of Mercy goes back to the year 2000.
Oh, so it's been going on for a while.
It's been going on a while. Yes, we have it once a year, and most recently at the Yale Club. And the purpose is really an opportunity to encourage people to donate so that our ministries can continue and so that we can afford scholarships to people who are in need of additional help to get on with their lives. This year is different. Our focus is on a residence that has been procured by our leadership to serve as an assisted living facility in Queens, actually in Whitestone, for about 35 of our sisters. Now, this came about because a little over a year ago, the wonderful Convent of Mercy, where we have been since 1862, wow, and which has, you know, all our sacred memories and all the beauty of the care that we gave to orphans there and the sisters who live there and went out to work in so many places. It has our history, our sacred history. The structure was declared unsuitable for continued residential living because age took its toll. Right. So this year we're focusing on getting some funding to help renovate the new building, which was formerly owned by the Redemptorist community, in which we have gotten on a 10-year lease with the possibility of renewal or purchase in the future.
Well, okay. Well, very good. Now,
and we always honor very important people to us. People who have our charism, who show generosity and mercy right across the board.
Well, see, that's exactly what I was about to say. So you're making my segue for me. I like it. You know, it makes my job a little bit easier.
Well,
but Monsignor is one of those who is going to be honored this year. Tell me a little bit about why, I guess, the sisters are honoring you, Monsignor, and how kind of you have reacted to this about being honored by the sisters.
Just a couple of thoughts. I'm not the only honoree.
Right,
Sister
right.
Fran Picone is the other honoree.
One of, yes.
One of the Sisters of Mercy. And just to say, you know, I've been involved with the Sisters of Mercy. I was asked to serve on the board of Angel Guardian about 20 years ago. And I really got to know the Sisters of Mercy through the work at Angel Guardian. And I've always found the sisters to be wonderfully involved with the lives of young people that have all sorts of challenges in their life. And being with the Sisters of Mercy in that, I've really been taken very much into their mercy care. Yeah. And they asked me if I would serve as an honoree. How could you say no to Sister Camille?
Right.
When she called me up on the phone, I said, Sister Camille, you know I can't say no to you. So I just kind of moved in, and I'm trying to do my best and trying to make it a great evening of mercy.
It's almost like you have no choice in the matter.
Well, it was well directed.
Right, right. Well, Sister, how do you go about choosing the folks that you honor? I mean, you mentioned those kind of the list of qualities of you know, the people that you honor on a yearly basis at the event. How do you go about choosing someone to honor?
Well, there are several criteria. Now, of course, this is a fundraiser, so we honor people who are willing to lend their name and their fame to attract people who will want to come and celebrate the honor that we provide for them. But also, we look for people who in their own lives exemplify the values that are so important to us as a community of mercy. Now, we have 4 vows: poverty, chastity, obedience, and the service of the poor, sick, and ignorant or uneducated. And we look for people who, by the quality of their own lives, have hearts filled with compassion for those who are less fortunate. Monsignor Casado is certainly one of those, and Sister Fran Picone is an extraordinary woman. She has, she's worked in many, many different careers in her life, but for past 30 years she's worked with the elderly, our own elderly, and currently with Lutheran Family Health Services. So these are people who have a joyful spirit and a generous heart, and I think those are the criteria.
Amazing. Well, just one last thing here. Time is kind of flying by on us, but I just wanted to ask, if folks want to be a part of the Evening of Mercy and help out, how can they do that?
Well, we would be very happy to have them call Grace Finley at our Convent of Mercy. We still have offices there, and the number is 718-622-5750, extension 107. We have chances on magnificent prizes. Of course, everybody doesn't win. Very few people do. But I always say, well, God sees. You know, God has his own prizes for those who are generous to others. But that would be one way. And there'll be an article in the tablet over the next 2 weeks or so that will talk about the Evening of Mercy. So you'll have more information there.
Great. Awesome.
Matt, it's a great night to help the sisters that taught us, that were so much involved in our lives when we were growing up. And so many of them need assisted living. Mm-hmm. It's just a great opportunity to help the sisters, especially the Sisters of Mercy today.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
And because we had to close the residence, the sisters who lived there, 29 of them, were dispersed to about 7 other places as far away as Pennsylvania. Mercy run, and they're well cared for, but they're far from their ministries and their families. One sister had lived at the Convent of Mercy 39 years. Wow. And worked in Mercy Home for developmentally disabled.
A very difficult situation,
yes,
something that
indeed.
folks need to really be mindful of and help out with.
Yes.
Well, Sister Camille, Monsignor, thank you very much both for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
And
thank you, Matt.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And thank you, David.
Great pleasure.
Always love to have them here. And to find out how you can take part in the Evening of Mercy or contribute, just head on over to our website, currentsny.net. I've written more about it in our blog. To get there, you just click on Riding the Wave. We'll be right back. When we return, will today's students be tomorrow's priests and nuns?
Well, I want to help people, but I really want to get married one someday.
We began tonight's show with a look at how the priesthood is having an impact today. But what about tomorrow? For some answers, we dropped by a vocations fair last weekend at Our Lady of Hope in Queens. It was a chance to promote the priesthood and other vocations among families and young people, and our own Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio was there.
Today in our church, we need many more young people to consider vocations to the priesthood and religious life. And if a young person today might think they have a vocation, don't dismiss it. Pray about it. First, you must pray. And then ask others to pray for you and with you, that you can truly discern if God is calling you.
The Lord told us that the harvest is great and the laborers are few. Those are Jesus' words himself. The vocations are always important. At a time when we have less vocations, it's even more important to pray for vocations. And it was a wonderful opportunity today in this parish that they've organized this Vocation Awareness Day. The children are dressed as angels, saints. It's an inspiration to see, again, witnesses to the faith and those who have given their lives completely to God. So this is a wonderful day.
Well, I love teaching in the school. So when I go in and I teach them, and many times they will ask a lot of interesting questions, which will then lead to what priests are about, and that helps.
It was the whole experience at my high school that really helped me out, and because they brought up the vocation, they introduced me to it. They introduced me to the idea. I decided maybe this isn't for me, but maybe something else is, and that's what I'm trying to find out.
St. Francis loves animals, and I like animals too, so it's kind of cool, but I don't know. Well, I want to help people, but I really want to get married one someday.
Back in the days when they had the high school seminaries, oftentimes it was a sister or something that might have put in the child's mind and heart that perhaps they may have a religious vocation, and strongly encourage them to do so and to follow that.
I go to the school, Our Lady of Hope. We did essays and posters for the vocation fair, and I wrote an essay myself about different vocations and how they're used today in the world, and how they inspire different people today. My mother's friend, Sue Frame, she's a missionary, and she went to the Solomon Islands. I probably will be talking to my mom's friend, and then I'll learn more from her, and I'll tell her, and she'll tell me from her point of view.
These days, I find that when folks respond to a religious vocation or calling, it's much more rooted and grounded in who they are, and a deep prayer life or spirituality, or a desire to really love and serve God and to give back for all the many graces and blessings that they have been given.
Well, some interesting conversation there. Also some very interested young people, it looks like. So very good. Well, that's it for tonight. Now, coming up on tomorrow's show, after the devastating earthquake earlier this year, thousands of Haitians are eligible for TPS. That's temporary protected status. But why aren't more applying for it? We'll find out. That and more coming up on tomorrow's show. But in the meantime, remember, we're always online. CurrentsNY.net is the website. You can also follow us on Twitter, become our fan on Facebook as well. We're always there and always posting updates. Until next time, I'm Matt McClure. Thanks so much for joining us. Have a great night.